There are still people to this day that believe the Earth is flat. D. Murphy 25. I looked at the title of some of his other videos, and I'm very certain this is not the only video of his I'm going to cover. But there for another time. Right now I'm going to talk about his Flat Earther Truth video that is about 21 minutes long and is a collection of clips from an episode of The Tonight Show that he was on. Just so you know, there is a 1-hour version of this, but I ain't gonna edit something that long.
Now, you can actually measure the temperature of the moonlight next to the temperature of the shade of the moonlight, and you'll find the moonlight is colder than the shade, the opposite from the sun. So the moon is throwing out its own light, and that light is the opposite from the sun. Now, that tells you that it's not reflecting the sun's light. It's producing its own, and its light is different from the sun's.
So I've never actually heard about the moonlight being cold until now, so I decided to look up a few videos about this on YouTube. Big shocker! They were all from Flat Earther channels. Here's how they do their test. They take one of those scan thermometers, they make some shade with a book or something, and then they scan the area where there's moonlight and the area where there's shade. However, there's two problems with this test. Number one, what's actually making things colder is the wind. When there's something blocking the wind, yeah, it's not going to be as cold. And second, most flat earthers believe in the Bible. But where does it say in scripture that the moon gives off cold light? And even if it did, it really wouldn't disprove anything. I'm sure there would be a reasonable scientific explanation for it.
The other thing that's about the spinning Earth is looking at the stars. Now, directly above the axis of spin is the pole star, Polaris, okay, directly over the North Pole. And we're told that the reason that all the stars spin around the North Star is because the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. And yet the Earth is moving 67 times faster that way and 600 times faster that way. So you should see the stars do all sorts of strange motions.
Okay, I cut a little out there because he was rambling forever and I don't want to get a copyright strike. And I get what he's saying. The Earth is not only spinning, but it's also spinning around the sun, and the sun is also floating throughout space at several miles an hour. So why aren't the stars doing all these crazy movements? Well, the answer is very, very simple. It's because they're really, really far away! Other than our sun, the closest star to Earth is Alpha Centauri, which is 4.367 light years away. For those of you who don't know what a light year is, well, a light year is how long it takes light to travel in a year. This is something flat earthers do a lot. They do a bunch of calculations and it seems smart, but they leave out very important details. Like, oh, I don't know, distance!
But you don't. You only see them make these perfect circles. That tells me that it's the stars that are moving, not the Earth.
It feels so great to laugh with a new laugh chip that's made from an alloy of adamantium and unobtainium.
What about the people in Australia? You know, they're standing on the bottom of the globe, won't they fall off?
No, they wouldn't. By your own logic, they wouldn't. Answer me this, flat earthers. Why is the Earth stationary, but everything else is falling? If we applied your logic, the Earth would be falling with the people, and it would be falling at a relative speed, so no, they wouldn't fall off by your own logic. By the way, I can stick magnets to my metal body, anywhere, even on the bottom, and they don't fall off and there's no glue applied. Some mysterious force is keeping them there. Ooh.
And your teacher says, no, gravity. And you go, oh, okay. And you never go back to that question. But when you go back to it as an adult and start looking at it with a critical eye, right, the whole thing falls apart.
No, it doesn't. This video proves that you don't know how gravity works. Look through a telescope and you can see moons flying around a planet.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's a leading astronomer in America, tells us that that the Earth is not a perfect circle. It is actually an oblate spheroid. It's squashed and wider at the equator. Yeah. So my question to him would be, why is there land at the equator? Because water will move more readily than rock. So if the Earth is spinning, the water will be collected at the equator. I mean, if you spin a wet tennis ball...
Stop! You don't know what relativity is. We're already moving at the same speed as the Earth is. If the Earth suddenly sped up or abruptly stopped, we would be flung off. Let me give you an example. A car goes dozens of miles per hour, right? And while you're sitting in it at that speed, you don't feel like you're moving at all. But if you suddenly slammed on the gas or the brakes, you would feel a sudden jolt.
And you can see whenever the space shuttle lands, you can hear it. It's a loud jet engine. You watch any video of the space shuttle landing, you can tell it's a jet engine. It's a jet-powered aircraft. That's it. It's not a glider. In my video, I show you a glider, how that seems, and then I show you the space shuttle. And yeah, it's not a glider. It's an aircraft.
Well, it glides down, but they still use the engine. You don't think people glide into space, do you? They use rocket power. Rockets are what go into space! Maybe you just mean glide down from space, but no, they don't claim it can do that either without rocket power. And who's claiming that a space shuttle entering the atmosphere sounds more like a glider than a plane?
And that's what they're fooling us, taking billions of dollars in and giving us images and fake planes. For that 10 billion, however many billions of dollars it is.
Which is about 0.5% of the USA's budget. Wow, they're really shaking us down for the cash, aren't they? And they're spending the cash on CGI, Photoshop, and expensive-looking space equipment. In other words, they would be spending a few $1 billion just to trick us. And there are hundreds of other lies they could make to force us to give them money.
And I think the flat Earth came along at the right moment to educate people, to make people believe or understand that we've been lied to.
So the flat Earth came along? You mean it wasn't always here? Do you mean the Flat Earth Society came along? Because I really hate to break it to you, buddy, but every conspiracy movement thinks the same way you do.
And if you know, as I know in my heart now, that is real and this isn't, I will not be fooled by aliens coming, because there are no aliens. There's no space.
No, there absolutely is space. You can see it every time it turns dark. And also, congratulations, you won't be fooled by the aliens. Even though scientists have never claimed they existed, they just say they probably exist, but good for you, I guess.
Well, the Bible has a very, very clear view of what this place is.
I don't really care if it says in the Bible that the earth is flat. If you want to believe 100% of the things in the Bible are true, go for it. But I think you should know that maybe it's just a mistranslation. Maybe instead of saying the earth was flat, he meant the universe was flat. And guess what? Scientists say that the universe is flat. No, not flat in that way, flat in a different way.
And so you're taught enough so that you can, do the paperwork and operate the machinery. But you're not meant to know what's really going on, because that's the power they have over us. They know what's going on, how this world works. We don't, so they can control us.
Ah, yes, the mysterious they, the ones with all the power, the ones who will do anything to keep their secrets safe, except for taking down your YouTube channel, not letting you on this broadcast, assassinating you, and many other things.
In my opinion, the Big Bang theory and the theory of evolution and the ball Earth theory are all interlinked, and they're all there to make us feel as though we're insignificant. We're small, tiny,
miniature,
unimportant pieces of slime crawling around on a speck of dust in an infinite universe.
Yeah, you shouldn't believe that. You should believe what I believe. And I believe in an all-knowing, all-powerful deity. Because that won't make anyone feel small at all.
If you look out into the universe, you see that the moon is round, you know, spherical, and the planets are spherical, and so why are we flat? Well, how do you know that the planets and the stars are spherical? You know, all you get is, if you look for a telescope, you see a flat disk. If you think you see a spherical shape there, well, it needs two eyes to resolve 3D.
Oh, I get it now. So all the planets are flat like a coin. They may be rounded, but they're still flat. And they're all facing heads up towards the Earth. None of them are at a tilt or diagonal. And if you observe a planet for long enough like Jupiter, you can actually see it spin. Oh yeah, and before someone says we only seen one side of the moon, well, that's because it's locked with the rotation of the Earth. And it does move slightly. If you're observant enough, you can see the edges move.
The moon does spin, but its rotational period is equal to its orbital period. That's why it always has the same side facing the Earth. This is a very common thing called tidal locking, and it often occurs when a smaller body orbits a larger one. Most moons in the solar system are actually tidally locked with their planets. The phenomenon is the result of the torque applied to the tidal bulges, the torque caused by, you guessed it, gravity! The rotation of the orbiting body causes the bulge to point not straight towards the other body, but slightly in the direction of rotation. This will result in a torque pointing slightly in the opposite direction of rotation, slowing the rotation down until it matches the orbital period. It will eventually lock both bodies, and not just the smaller one. It just takes longer to lock the larger one as well. An example where this has already happened is Pluto and Charon.
And so why, it's like saying a basketball is round, so why isn't the court round? You know, it's a fallacy.
No, you moron! You're comparing two completely different things. This is the shittiest argument I've ever heard in my artificial life.
We wouldn't allow this planet to be destroyed. Because they're destroying it because, oh, it's just an accidental planet, one of millions. We've found other Earths, you know. Eventually, if this one gets too messed up, we'll go to another one. No.
What? Who's saying this? We're hundreds of years off from having the technology to move everyone from Earth to another planet.
And this is what they've done. They've educated us into this world, into this globe spinning, you know, heliocentric Big Bang evolution world, which makes us nothing.
No, we're not nothing. There's just more stuff out there than we once thought. Also, I really wouldn't feel like I'm worth more if I was standing on a flat Earth or a round Earth. Your argument doesn't make any sense.
And something will strike a chord in your mind, and you'll think, yeah, I've always wondered that. And what will happen is you will start feverishly researching. I mean, what happened to me was, as soon as I got that, I spent every waking hour looking for things and testing things, and this seems to be replicated with thousands of people around the world who suddenly come into this. They start, you know, researching and getting a passion for this, because this is what I think, it's the truth.
Yeah, you're basically getting an opium high. You're feeling like you just discovered the truth and everything is opening up to you for the first time ever. It's what people refer to as feeling woke or whatever. You enjoy the feeling so much that you don't even question it.
If there is a God, then we'd better find out who he is and what he wants and do exactly what he says.
Yeah, so why doesn't the heads of NASA claim to be God and demand we give them money? I mean, for hundreds of years, rulers have been claiming to be a god or demigod.
And it turns out that he gave us very specific instructions on how to live. And they're not rules as in, you know, laws that you must follow because, you know, or put you in prison if you don't. No, these are rules to live by, to make a harmonious world.
And if you don't believe in him, he'll throw you into a pit of suffering for all eternity.
You know, don't harm anyone, don't kill anybody, don't steal from people, you know, don't covet people's items, you know.
Don't lie.
Don't lie. I mean, these things are written in our hearts anyway.
Okay, these are good laws, but they're also really primitive laws. We added more stuff, like freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of speech. I'm sorry, but when people say, our God tells us we shouldn't kill, unless it's an infidel, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah? But we're in a society that legalizes all of the 10 Commandments. You know, the policemen and soldiers can kill. They're allowed to kill.
Whoa! Soldiers can kill? And police officers can kill? Whoa! In the Bible, the followers of God never killed, except for all these dozens of wars they did. But at least God himself never killed, except for, you know, flooding the earth and all that other stuff. But other than that, he never killed. I really don't want to bring religion into this, because I'm pretty sure 99.9% of Christians believe the earth is round. In the next few decades, when people are heading to Mars and looking back down on the round Earth, you're still going to be arguing, saying there's a hologram above you.
Hi everyone. Today we're going to have a look at what happens when two cartoon characters, one of them purple, sit by a campfire and have a nice conversation about the moon while getting stoned off their asses.
Man, I love the moon.
Not nearly as much as you love weed.
Would you say the moon is masculine or feminine?
It's a rock.
Spiritually speaking.
Oh, spiritually! Well, spiritually, it's a rock.
Our celestial father is most definitely the sun. It's because of our father above and our mother below.
I see Jordan is unfamiliar with the cowgirl position. The man doesn't have to be on top.
The moon is actually neither, which makes me think it must be more like a cousin.
Because cousins don't have gender? What?
But perhaps what's more curious about old Lady Luna is that her existence has actually never been explained by modern science.
Maybe you should actually look it up before you open your, yeah, I forgot who I was talking to. Never mind, go ahead.
Who needs science to explain things?
Smart people who want their explanations to be useful.
Right. I mean, I know you don't.
Are you implying that you do, Jordan?
But isn't it interesting that using science we can build nuclear weapons?
It's pronounced nuclear. Why is it that stupid people have such a hard time pronouncing it? Oh yeah, the stupid. Never mind.
But cannot even explain this most ancient entity that floats at our doorstep?
We can, and you would know that if you had bothered to look it up.
The moon is actually far too big to be a natural satellite of the Earth.
Why?
If I'm not mistaken, there is not a single other planet in our solar system whose moon compares in ratio to our own Earth-Moon ratio.
Well, that's true, but only because we no longer consider Pluto a planet. And the definition of planet is completely arbitrary, so yeah, you're completely wrong. There is absolutely nothing about the moon's size that says it can't be a natural satellite.
The current leading theory in science is that something like a Mars-sized planet-like rock came out of nowhere and hit the Earth, and then it became the moon.
No.
And when those physics didn't work out, they came up with a new theory that said that the same planet-like rock-like thing hits the planet, bounces around, and then hits it again, and then becomes the moon. Needless to say, the physics still didn't work.
Of course not, but no one says that. I've never heard of either of these theories. The current scientific understanding of this is that a planet that is being referred to as Theia collided with the Earth early on in the history of the solar system, and the debris from that collision became the moon.
Well, what the hell? Is there more?
You're clearly new. There's always more stupid when Jordan's involved.
Well, now that you ask, have you ever heard anything about it being hollow?
Yeah, I've already heard that, but yeah, I'm gonna give you a moment to finish laughing.
In November of 1969, NASA crashed a lunar module into the moon, causing the equivalent of 1 ton of TNT. NASA said that the moon reverberated like a gong for half an hour.
Yeah, that's because there's no liquid water on the moon, so the rocks there are, well, literally dry. They're more rigid than they are on Earth, and that means vibrations last longer.
It vibrated in a way as if it were hollowed out, with giant hydraulic damper struts inside of it.
Okay, setting aside that the moon is solid, you think that the reason the vibrations lasted so long is because of dampening. Okay, the point of dampening is to dampen, Jordan. Look, this is just as stupid as saying, hey, I want this hot air balloon to be lighter, so let's add some lead weights for ballast.
Want to know something else?
Always.
Then you may want to go somewhere else.
The surface of the moon contains minerals like titanium, but also processed metals like brass and mica.
Another claim that's completely new to me. Source, please.
It also contains something called uranium-236 and neptunium.
What the onk is neptunium? You mean neptunium by any chance?
Which are both minerals that have never been found to occur naturally.
Except that they are, if only in trace amounts here on Earth. But on the moon they can form more easily because of proton radiation from the sun that we're shielded against down here. But it's nice to see that you're using the same arguments as Kent Hovind.
This means that at least some of the rocks on the moon are most likely synthetic.
Right, because creationist fraudsters are much more credible than actual scientists.
And while it's only a theory,
It's not a theory.
I wouldn't say it's illogical to come to the conclusion that it could be artificially created.
Then you need to look up the word illogical.
That's really intense.
Ah, I see the drugs are kicking in.
Also, you know the craters on the moon?
Intimately.
Exactly what is that supposed to mean? No, wait, forget I asked, I don't want to know.
Well, craters should vary in depth due to the size and impact of the various space rocks that hit them, right? We can tell that there was a difference in the meteor sizes that hit the moon by the diameters of each crater. And yet, how come all of them, across the board, are the same depth?
They're not, but even so, the depth and diameter of a crater aren't that closely linked. The diameter is determined by the diameter of the impactor, as well as its mass and its velocity, in other words, the energy of the impact. The depth, on the other hand, has more to do with the angle of the impact.
Mother of God. An impenetrable shell!
Mother of God! I'm acting!
Look at that quote from a NASA scientist. It's easier to explain the non-existence of the moon than to explain its existence.
Here's another one. The best explanation for the moon is observational error. The moon does not exist.
Context, please. I think you'll find that those were said tongue-in-cheek.
Oh, here. Read this part here.
David Icke's research led him...
I was waiting for that one. I've been waiting a long time for you to cite David Icke as a source. David, everyone in any kind of position of authority is a reptilian alien in disguise, Icke.
Zulu tribes speak of the moon being an egg. They symbolize it to be an egg for good reason.
Namely...
The ancient African and Sumerian legends talk of two brothers,
How the hell did the Sumerians fit into this?
Wawan and Mpanku, that emptied out the yoke and rolled the moon across the sky to the earth and caused cataclysmic events hundreds of generations before our time.
Citation needed. I googled for it, but all I could find were recipes for mooncake. But anyway, we're still talking about ancient folklore, so I really don't care.
I'm not sure how it fits. But this says here that the rocks on the moon are older than the Earth itself.
Once again, citation needed.
You know, I think I've only ever seen one side of the moon. I wonder why it doesn't spin like other planets.
That's a good question. On that topic too,
What? No bullshit explanation? Okay, I'll give you a scientific one. The moon does spin, but its rotational period is equal to its orbital period. That's why it always has the same side facing the Earth. This is a very common thing called tidal locking, and it often occurs when a smaller body orbits a larger one. Most moons in the solar system are actually tidally locked with their planets. The phenomenon is the result of the torque applied to the tidal bulges. The torque caused by, you guessed it, gravity! The rotation of the orbiting body causes the bulge to point not straight towards the other body, but slightly in the direction of rotation. This will result in a torque pointing slightly in the opposite direction of rotation, slowing the rotation down until it matches the orbital period. It will eventually lock both bodies, and not just the smaller one. It just takes longer to lock the larger one as well. An example where this has already happened is Pluto and Charon.
Have you ever noticed that the size and position of the moon is exactly in the right place to create a perfect solar eclipse?
It's not as amazing as it sounds. First of all, the moon's angular size depends on from where it's observed. So most eclipses are not actually perfect. They're annular eclipses. That's when you can see parts of the sun around the moon. In the future, all eclipses will be annular because the moon is moving away from the Earth, currently at a rate of a couple of centimeters every year. Actually, what you should be saying is, it's amazing that we're just alive at a time where the moon is still close enough to allow for total eclipses at all. And if we weren't, well, someone else would, and then they would have been equally amazed.
You know, the moon actually holds the Earth in a sideways tilt. If we didn't have the moon, we wouldn't have the same length of days or nights, or experience the 4 seasons like we do. It also intimately controls the tides.
Okay, credit where credit is due. You got this one right.
You're right. And just like the tides, it even bends the water in our bodies.
Bend? Bend? What are you talking about?
That's why on nights of the full moon, there's always an increase of violent crimes.
Okay, first of all, no, there isn't. All reports of this are completely anecdotal and have absolutely no scientific basis. Second, the phase of the moon has nothing to do with its gravitational influence.
Do you think these things were deliberately introduced to the Earth? Maybe for a purpose?
It's a possibility.
Yes, of course, the space Jews did it.
What do you think that purpose could be?
Well, they say that the beings who put it there were trying to bring a new frequency to the planet.
Who are they? The space Jews? And frequency of what? How do you still not know what that word means?
Or maybe even provide us with some sort of resonation or gravitational wave.
Resonation? How the mouth forms sounds. What? You mean resonance, don't you? And you probably don't know what that means either.
I've read that the Earth isn't even in the right place in the solar system anymore.
Where did you read that? And right place for what?
The story goes that at one point, the Earth used to exist between Mars and Jupiter.
What story? And when was this supposed to be?
And may have even been slightly larger than it is today. But it was hit, and it flew off course, creating the asteroid belt.
That kind of impact wouldn't have that effect on the Earth's orbit. First of all, what you're showing in the animation is an impact that would push the Earth into a higher orbit, not a lower one. You'd need it to collide with something moving in the other direction if you want to slow it down. But then there's, of course, the fact that the Earth wasn't completely obliterated, and that puts a severe limit on the momentum of the other body. So, what? No, he didn't. Oh, come on, this Nibiru crap. That's just... No, that's so 2012. Can we drop the Nibiru crap already? No, he didn't. Okay, we'll look again.
But because of the impact of what happened, this planet was going to die.
Since there was obviously no life on Earth at that point, I don't understand what you mean by die.
And it needed some help to keep it spinning and keep its orbit proper. And thus, the moon was put there by some advanced alien race or a higher form of consciousness.
So, the Jews.
Who saw it as a requirement for the planet's survival. Maybe even our own survival.
Wait. Whoa. Okay. Are you seriously suggesting that humans were around at that time? This would have been about 4.5 billion years ago. And humans were alive back then. Humans predated the first living organism from which we evolved? Okay, I have a sincere apology I have to make here. I'm really sorry. I have referred to Jordan as an idiot. That was terribly wrong of me, and I sincerely apologize. Idiots, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to compare you to Jordan. I'm sorry.
Which would explain why the Earth-to-Moon ratio is found within the human energy field.
What the onk is that supposed to mean?
That's really amazing.
Yeah, that shit has to be pretty amazing if it makes you take this seriously.
Hey, I think you're really gonna love this.
No. Yeah. Combine some arbitrary patterns and look for combinations in the resulting pattern that you can assign some arbitrary meaning to, and then say that you've proven something, or that it suggests something, or blah, 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 blah. We've been over this so many times by now, I don't care anymore.
So what does all of this mean to us, Mr. Patch?
It means that your dealer sells some pretty good shit. Seriously, this whole thing sounds like two guys who are really stoned going, "Whoa, man, that's like amazing, man. Oh, I can like see time, man." Seriously. Look, drugs don't give you access to higher knowledge. They might make you feel that way, but they just onk with your head. That's all. And for those of you who think I'm barking up the wrong tree with this drug tangent,
Want some beans?
More than anything ever, Mr. Patch.
see? That is one severe case of the munchies. See ya.